Chapter 2. It was generally accepted that the market in Carver began at the castle gate on the west side of town, and ended at a large tavern on the other side of town, with a sign denoting it as the Wild Rose. The Wild Rose was a popular place for locals and frequent visitors to mingle over food and drink. It was not one of the rowdy establishments for a disreputable crowd, neither was it a high-class place which the regent's family might frequent. It was, rather, a place to have conversation with steady folk, and gather real news from people who disdained tall tales. Inessa entered, and sat down at the bar with a weary sigh. She was wearing her western clothing, a belted tunic and pants of undyed wool, with a roll of brightly coloured woven cloth slung around her chest and clipped at her hip with a metal clasp. "An ale, please, Viri." Viri sat a mug down in front of her and smiled. "Welcome back, Inessa. You've been gone almost 3 weeks, have you not?" "Oh, more," she sighed. "That was the slowest travelling troupe I've had yet. I arrived late last night." She looked at Sarah, Viri's round and healthful wife, who was cutting carrots for the stew behind the bar. "Add some extra for me, Sarah. I haven't eaten all day." "Why are you back here already, love?" Sarah asked in her quiet voice, looking up from the soup pot. "Surely you don't want another client so soon? Why don't you stay home and rest?" Inessa yawned and stretched. "I'll leave for home again before the dinner rush, so as not to get approached by another client. But I'm tired, and I don't want to go shopping. Feed me, please." She grinned at Sarah. Viri set down his towel and leaned on the bar, his eyes bright with interest. "There are already rumours about your journey circling. One of the footmen told a tale at a tavern in Ravani, and the story was being repeated here last night." Inessa looked up. "What story?" "Oh, they said that there was a terrific storm on the river, and you stole a horse and disappeared in the middle of it, then came back and refused to say where you'd gone." "I did not," she grunted. "I borrowed a horse in the calm of the morning, and rode to see all was well after the storm before we started moving again. Some trees were downed." She looked up at Viri, inwardly surprised at her own ability to lie smoothly to her only close friends here. Not many Azovians would associate with a woman who dressed in Western garb. She was unseemly. In reality, she had taken the horse in the morning to follow the stranger and discover his fate. She had found nothing conclusive. Truthfully, she didn't know if she hoped he was safely dead, or that those horrible riders had captured him alive. But since there was nothing she could do either way, she preferred to put it out of her head and make no wishes. "This was a particularly bad client," she added after a moment's silence. "You should have seen the way she carried on, screaming and bemoaning every little thing. I was almost certain we had thieves tailing us, but I suppose even they couldn't stand the sound of her complaining, for they never attacked." "That was lucky," Viri answered, surprised. "It was," Inessa agreed. "I circled the troop several times, trying to see who it was, but the way my client carried on, shrieking about delays every time I did, they were long gone before I could catch them. Most frustrating." She shrugged. "I suppose it all worked out, though." Viri nodded. "I wager your vigilance scared them off." Inessa chuckled. "I highly doubt it." She lifted her mug and took a sip of her ale. "Oh, these clients are going to be the death of me. I need to find another line of work." Viri started wiping the bar. "Oh, I thought you liked to travel." Inessa leaned her chin on her cupped hand and thoughtfully ran her finger down the side of her mug. "I like the woods. I like using my wits for survival. I like hunting. I don't like lofty ladies and snobbish fancy folk." Sarah looked up. "But the fancy folk can pay, love." Inessa chuckled. "Always the voice of reason, Sarah. You are correct. Rich people pay. Especially rich women will pay for a woman guide, as they feel I'm less likely to take advantage of them. Though, by the by, I'm not entirely sure why that would be. I'm as capable of pinching their things and leaving them to rot in the forest as any man. Sarah gave her a sharp glance, and Inessa threw up her hands. Not that I would. I swear by any god you please, I've never stolen so much as a hairpin from anyone. Well, Viri interjected with a good-natured smile, I'm sure they hire you for your good reputation, not just because they believe you won't rob them blind. Inessa tilted her head. Isn't that what a good reputation is? His face was blank. Eh? A widespread belief that the professional in question won't rob you blind. That's what a good reputation is. Ah, well, you're being clever again. What I mean is I should think folks come asking about you on account of you having a reputation for being a first-rate wilderness guide. It's well known there's none finer in Carver. Inessa sniffed. I doubt any of them could care less, to be honest. They only care that their precious money stays safe from the beginning to the end of their journey. I doubt it has ever occurred to them that one guide might be a better tracker or wayfinder than another. There was a moment of silence as Viri considered whether she may be right. Sarah stirred the soup pot, and Inessa sipped her ale in a self-righteous manner. Well, Viri rejoined after a moment, if you quit, what would you do? It's not like you can be a housewife, or... His voice trailed off as he failed to think of any other vocations for a single woman on the spot. She would live off the land like a feral thing, Sarah answered in her usual deadpan manner. Only a small twinkle in her eye betrayed her humour. As her wild western relatives taught her to. Inessa's spunky veneer faltered for barely a heartbeat. She could take offence. Her brothers would have. She considered retorting that she was not wild, and neither were the clans. It was Azovian knights in black armour who were wild. But a breath later she returned to her customary jovial tone. I could. She thumped her fist on the table to accompany her fiery tone. That I could do. But coffee costs money, and money is hard to come by when one lives off the land. I need a plan to never have to cater to rich, snobbish people and still buy coffee. I've a cousin who traps furs and makes a wage you wouldn't spit at, Viri suggested. She shook her head. Alas, only men can join the idiotic Trappers' Guild. I'd have no business. Inessa ran her hands through her hair and grabbed fistfuls of it, as if to pull it out. You see, this is the problem with society. If I could... Sarah, put that back. It's only my first today. Sarah paused in the middle of removing Inessa's ale. Second, my dear. You can't be serious. Did you refill it? Oh, well then, it's your fault. She took it out of Sarah's hand and drained it. Now, better hurry the soup so I don't have 2 ales on an empty stomach. She grinned. Sarah sighed with exasperation and turned back to stirring the soup. Viri leaned on the bar again, his tone concerned. Inessa, dear, you do know that Sarah and I think a lot of you, and we are glad to have you operate your guiding business out of this tavern, as it really is the safest place in Carver for you to frequent. Inessa snorted. I can handle myself, Viri, I assure you. All I mean is, Viri continued, you are past 20 now. 3 months past. Exactly. Inessa looked at him blankly. Did you have a point? Don't you think you should start considering what you would like to do with your life? Inessa gestured vaguely. What do you think we've been doing, if not discussing my future plans? She was completely at a loss as to his meaning. He means, love, that you need to think of settling down soon. She sighed and leaned her head on her hand. Ah, that. She looked from Sarah to Viri and tipped her head to the side. "I suppose you have a good Azovian man in mind." "Well, no," Viri said, looking down at the towel in his hands. "Can't think of anyone that wants to marry a wild Westerner?" "Oh, but, love, you aren't really a Westerner. Not by blood," Sarah began in a gentle tone. I just thought, if you want to borrow some longer dresses and see how you like them. When you aren't working, you know." Inessa stared at her empty mug. "And then what? Put on a headscarf and see if a Vasanthi man wants me next? I suppose I can change myself into anything and put myself up for the highest bidder." "That's not what we meant," Viri began, but Inessa put a coin on the counter to pay for her ale and rose. "I don't need the soup after all. Good day to you both." She turned and walked out the door without another word.